Should review topic number 2 says rejecting American identity. Is the endeavor more useful in America or outside of America, or both? This came with a link that's taking us back to X as well. And this takes us to African Stream. This tweet, let me make sure it's not a retweet or something. Okay, so this tweet says why Black Americans should reject U.S. identity. It says many people ask what our solution is if we support neither Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump. The answer is simple. We believe that Pan-Africanism, Africa's total liberation and unification, will free all African people everywhere. In this video, Pan-African organizer, I can't pronounce the name properly, but Onye Sonu, I'll leave it at that, breaks down why she, as an African living in America, rejects U.S. identity and directs all her energies towards liberation on the African continent. Rather than placing our fate and our destiny in the hands of the U.S. empire, which has done nothing but oppress us for the past 500 years, we encourage our viewers to align themselves with the future of the African continent. As the great Pan-Africanist Kwame Ture once explained, quote, until Africa is free, no African anywhere in the world will ever be free or respected. This is also to say that once the African continent is free and unified, Africans across the world, whether in the United States, the UK, Brazil, or elsewhere, will have a safe and prosperous continent to return to. And perhaps not everyone will choose to return home. Either way, Africans living anywhere in the world will be ensured their basic safety and security because a liberated Africa will have the international power necessary to guarantee the protection of Africans everywhere. If a person of African heritage is gunned down and killed on the streets of New York or Rio de Janeiro, a unified Pan-African state can intervene and demand answers, and if answers are not sufficient, recall ambassadors or even refuse to trade with countries where Africans are mistreated. That's why we should think very carefully about potentially supporting Democrat or Republican politicians whose policies go towards the destruction of Africa. The drone bombing of African countries, our boy Tyler just mentioned this, the expansion of the U.S. military across Africa, the sanctioning of African countries, shady business deals, the entrapment of Africa via World Bank debt, etc. Have a listen to our sister and let us know your views and what she says in the comments. So I'm going to play the video. It's a minute and a half. I might play it twice just to make sure we get all the points, and then we'll discuss.
I think the Obama administration represented a watershed moment in this strategy of counter-revolution. I think the Obama administration represented a watershed moment in this strategy of counter-revolution. It represented a moment where African people began to accept that our history is part of American history. Our culture is part of American culture. Where before we understood ourselves unquestionably as African people, now we understand ourselves as part of the American project. And we have to talk about why that happened. What's happening is that African people in the US have internalized American exceptionalism. We understand ourselves to be a separate nation existing apart from the masses of African people in the continent and around the world. We have internalized the logic of settler colonialism. We are participating in the erasure of the indigenous nations of the United States, which are still here, which are still fighting for their land, which represents the front line of the struggle against the destruction of the planet. We have internalized the enemy's line against them. So we have to understand we are not a nation apart from the masses of African people around the world. Our destiny as Africans in the United States is not tied to the destiny of this empire. It's going down, y'all. This is a sinking ship. This project is doomed. I think the Obama administration represented a watershed moment in this strategy of counter-revolution. It represented a moment where African people began to accept that our history is part of American history. Our culture is part of American culture. or before we understood ourselves unquestionably as African people, now we understand ourselves as part of the American project. And we have to talk about why that happened. What's happening is that African people in the US have internalized American exceptionalism. We understand ourselves to be a separate nation existing apart from the masses of African people in the continent and around the world. We have internalized the logic of settler colonialism. We are participating in the erasure of the indigenous nations of the United States, which are still here, which are still fighting for their land, which represents the front line of the struggle against the destruction of the planet. We have internalized the enemy's line against them. So we have to understand we are not a nation apart from the masses of African people around the world. Our destiny as Africans in the United States is not tied to the destiny of this empire. It's going down, y'all. This is a sinking ship. This project is doomed.
All right. I think the sister said some things there that was on point. That should be the messaging, I think, to the FBA and ADOS types like Caleb Don 7 is saying. She's talking about the FBA ADOS flunkies. Black Steel earlier said she's cooking. So let me start with Black Steel. Well, before Black Steel goes, let me shout out Cheryl Easy. I think I've seen this name in the chat a while back. She's here. Oh, yeah, I'm assuming she, but they're here. And they say, especially, they said earlier, they said Black people truly do not understand the thinking or mindset of white people. She said, especially in the military, whites believe wholly in the white man's burden. They see Blacks worldwide as children that need to be guided and who are lost without them. With that said, let's hear from Black Steel. Black Steel, what say you?
I was just saying this on the other prompt. That's so funny. How Obama made being Black American, how you made us, more accepting of U.S. atrocities overseas, right? Obama literally bombed like what? How many nations? Somalia, Libya, all this stuff. Yeah, I think that rejecting American identity, right? Is it more useful in America? I think it's both, right? I think that it's important for us to understand, especially for those ADOS clowns, which I truly believe that ADOS and FBA is a psychological organization. I do believe they are counter-revolutionary. I definitely believe there's some Fed work involved with them. I really do, because many of their takes are so dumb. It's like it's difficult to see how stupid their conclusions are. They always had more smoke for other Black people than they have for white people, which is always a telltale sign to me. You have more hatred for your brother and sister from the Caribbean and from the continent than you do for the white people who've been constantly murdering, raping, and stealing from your ancestors for the past 400 years. But you mad at Jamaicans? I don't get it. But anyways, I think it's important because, especially for African Americans, we've been here before there was a United States, right? United States is only 200 something years old and is already showing the collapse of a large scale empire. The Roman Empire lasted 2,000 years. You had Egypt lasted 3,000 years, but then America hasn't even made 300 years yet, and it's already collapsing under its own weight. So, and I'm happy to see that too, I gotta say. But I really say that we understood that even though we lived in this country, we were born in this country. This was not our country, right? And they made it known this was not our country. They threw certain programs such as benign neglect, certain policies, segregation. And it's so funny because I always think about what Malcolm X said about the wolf and the fox, and how wolf bares his teeth to you, even though they're both canines. They bare their teeth to you. You know the wolf is your enemy, and you can prepare to defend yourself. But the fox will lure you into a sense of security, and you'll be halfway down his throat before you even know what's going on. And I think that America has replaced its naked racism to a more, subtle. You're a part of us. We'll put black people as presidents or in defense industry. We'll have black people as secretaries of state, and you know, whatever role, 5-star generals in the Marine Corps and everything else like that. We'll show our black ambassadors as they vote for against ceasefires and genocide, and we kill people in the Congo and Sudan, and we'll just show how inclusive America is of all its people of color, right? But then when you've integrated your people into a burning house, like Dr. King said, which is basically what's being done. We're being integrated into this burning house, and then we're forced to, deal with the consequences of that. So I want to bring back to the question: is it more useful inside or outside of America? I think that it's both, but because we have to really continue to build that unity between Pan Africanism, because yes, Black Americans, by and large, I think that we understand that we can't engage with America the same way Europeans can, the same way the settlers can, and we'll be reminded of that quite often. I think it's important that we continue to build that kind. This country is not for us. Understand America, what's going on in Great Britain right now, where they're just jumping on and beating and killing blacks and Asians and Arabs and everything else like that. Anybody who's not white, that that has happened in America before. It can happen again. I always talk about what happened after Hurricane Katrina. Those white people went and just started killing black people who just were trying to flee from a storm. They just waited for the opportunity. That can very much happen again in the United States. That is not that far fetched. We're not safe here. So yeah, we're going to have to continue to work and build with our brothers and sisters on the continent, because they're the ones who are impacted by our lack of activism. They're the ones who are, their countries are being bombed, their resources are being stolen, and we're turning a blind eye to that with some idea of American exceptionalism, when they'll kill you too, black person, black American. Don't get it twisted. The white man doesn't make a distinction between a Nigerian or a Ghanaian or African American. We're all just niggers to them. So that's something that needs to be kept in mind. I've spoken too long. I'll pass the mic. Thank you, Coco.
No, that's quite all right. I appreciate your commentary. Let me just put it out there. If anyone else wants to join the panel, there's still spaces up here. Just click the link. It's pinned to the top of the chat, and you too could have your opinions heard as well. Let me go to Jose next. Jose, what say you?
Yeah. I thought it would blow over the ADOS and FBA, but it's getting stronger. People are making songs about it, etc. And I'm a bit disappointed because America, the white devil, etc. Where has it gone? Where have all these sentiments gone? Being revolutionary against what? Yeah, against the American government. If you're a citizen and if you're outside the American government, yeah, I can only express my disappointment. I don't know what to expect anymore. Seeing those images. Of South Africans trying to make a bad image of Nigerians. Have you all seen that on X? Like old murder cases, etc. They are throwing at each other. And I'm looking at FBA, and I'm like, yeah, where's it gonna stop? I'm worried. We're making a bad image of ourselves. Uh, uh, I mean, yeah, America was the enemy, and now people get angry at Arabs for being against America. And people are protecting American interests in Africa against Russians and Chinese. I'm a bit lost. Am I lost, or are we lost? Yeah. What would Garvey say? Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks for bringing back the concept. I gotta put it back on the screen. What would Gabi say? With that said, let me hear from Buana next. Buana, what are your thoughts on this, and what would Gabi say?
Well, Koku, I'll just address in terms of speaking on this subject. Uh, in terms of outside of America, I wouldn't touch the inside of America. I think that the Black Americans on the panel could deal with that much better than I can. But outside of America, I think that I wouldn't relinquish myself of that experience of being a Black American or African American person. I wouldn't do that because I think that the African American person outside of America has so much political currency. They have a whole lot of political currency, in particular, even in places like Africa. I think that the African American and also the Caribbean person, to a lesser extent, we represent something that what was practiced and done on in this part of the world, and why we was brought in this part of the world. We had to unify. So yeah, we are a little bit of everything. We are a little bit of Igbo. We are a little bit of Ashanti. We are a little bit of all kind of West African tribes coming together, having to work together for our own specific purpose on this side of part of the world. So if we was to touch base and get back to West Africa, the whole issues of tribalism dies because we are a little bit of everything. We had to work together. You can't practice sectarian politics with a man who's a little bit of everything. And we could prove that on a DNA level. On a DNA level, we could prove that. So I think that where Africa, West Africa, has issues of tribalism, I feel like that we are the key to that, resolving these issues because we are a little bit of everything. And also too, I wouldn't so easily dismiss the time that was spent on this side of the world, because you learn from your experiences, whether they are good or bad. You learn from those experiences. 400 years plus is a long time to be in this part of the world, and for the Caribbean, even a little bit longer. I wouldn't so easily dismiss the fact that I am a African Caribbean person. I'm an African Bahamian person. I wouldn't so easily just relieve myself of that experience, because that comes with a whole lot of not only history but experiences in living in this part of the world. So I wouldn't so easily dismiss that. I really would. I think that we have something to bring to this table, coming from this side of the world and unifying it with our brothers in the western side of the world. I think that I wouldn't easily dismiss that. Now, as far as within America, I would let my African American brothers speak on that particular thing. But in terms of relinquishing, well, what people perceive as Americanism or Caribbeanism or whatever we have experienced in this side of the world, I wouldn't so easily relinquish that, especially when you are dealing with global politics in the world, because we have a different kind of view of the world that's different from a continental African. We are still brothers, but our ideas may be a little bit different, and in understanding that and coming together, I think that we will be a force to reckon with. We'll be a force to reckon with because we have learned so much on this side of the world. And let me speak to. I want to speak briefly, to Black Steel. When he talks about the fact that the empire is going to fall. Black Steel would understand, because he has children, that that they're gonna be affected by the empire falling too. You know what I mean, I don't think it's something that we should celebrate. Well, maybe we should, but all of us in the Western world are going to be affected by that empire falling. So that needs to also be clear and understood as well. You know, all of us, we want fairness in the world, absolutely, absolutely. But what we clamor for, I hope we can appreciate it when we actually get it. You know, but I'll leave it there and let the American brothers go. And I'm very curious to know how they feel on
So,
this particular
one,
subject.
I think that that I got to say this, that United States is like the world's biggest terrorist. The United States empire collapsing would be a net positive for the world. I really do believe that. I believe that much of the misery and suffering that happens throughout the planet is a direct result of American imperialism. And hell, everything from climate change to all the wars and the finances of it would go away. I think that would be a net positive. Now, think there's over 800 U.S. military bases across the world, right? America is willing to bring the world to the brink of nuclear annihilation to maintain their hegemony. I think that's a good thing if they were to go away. Like even right now, this what's going on in Ukraine. What's going on in Ukraine is a proxy war, just like Afghanistan, just like Vietnam. These are Ukrainians are literally being. I have no love for the Ukrainians, but this war is being exacerbated by the U.S. to weaken Russia. If that goes away, they could have a peace treaty. Who is funding Israel right now to bomb children in Palestine? That's the U.S. It goes away. The U.S. doesn't stop giving them money. It goes away overnight. It's a wonderful thing. I think that America spends so much. They just sent Israel $50 billion. You could, I think it was the United Nations. Somebody said you could literally end world hunger for $40 billion. So for less money than it takes to kill children and the Gaza Strip, you could literally end world hunger. But America's like, nah, fuck that. We need them kids dead. We need to support our ally. Like, I think it's a net positive. As Americans, like, if you don't have the ability to kill anybody anywhere else in the world, I see that as a win. I do. I really
A question for Buana, if I may. Buana, do you believe that the world order that it will become a chaos if the West or America loses its position? That's a serious question because I believe a lot of us believe that. A lot of a great part of the world population believes that if the West falls away, that it will be chaos. Do you believe that, Buana?
Yes, yes. And I think that if I'm answering you fairly, yes. I believe that for a time, I think that the world will devolve chaotically for a time because so much of the world economies are mixed up, you know, and tied to the American economy. I think that the world will eventually stabilize. Like right now, Ibrahim Traore is trying to go on to the gold standard, right? He's trying to have his money be based off of the gold standard. So in America, they making dollars out of nothing, but people trust that dollar so much that even though it's backed by nothing, the world still is going off of that standard. If you lose that, it has to be replaced with something. So I think that for the immediate time period, yes, I feel like yes, it's gonna devolve into chaos until something else replaces it. Now, what is gonna replace that? It'll be reflected throughout the rest of the world. I think that Dr. Amos Wilson said before. I'm
But
sorry, I just wanted to ask you. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
money is based on debt since the beginning of the 70s. Hasn't it been longer based on gold or even the crops of that year? I mean, it's always based on real value. So going back to that would mean a lot of good for the so-called global South. So yes, not only will it be better because all the destruction is gone and all the chaos, if chaos reigns when they fall, it's because they fight their fall. They will like how they got that position. That's how they are going to defend it. So yeah, there will be chaos, and it will be them. Like we're looking at it, they are going down. And what's happening? Wars, inexplicable wars, like everybody is watching a genocide, and it has to go through like two genocides. And it's a lot of confusion. Like are Jews creating Lebensraum? Thank you for introducing um, yeah, German expression,
You're
because
welcome. You're welcome.
it looks like Jews are creating Lebensraum in Ukraine by killing Slavs from both sides. So yeah, what are we looking at? It's all chaos, and it's always the same. It's the usual suspect behind it every single time. And yeah, everybody can see that winning is not their goal. Just chaos everywhere. I mean, look what happened with China in Africa. Everybody is eating, everybody is driving on the logistics, and yeah, I mean, politics with logistics. I mean, yeah, what can I say? The United States gone. I think in weeks, everybody will do better. Seriously. Well, of course, they will start bullshit, but if they would be gone from one day to the other, I think in weeks everybody has it better. Seriously.
Okay,
Jose,
so Jose,
there's
you said something. Let me argue, be
Go
brief,
ahead,
Black
Mark.
Steel. He said
Go ahead,
something
Mark.
very interesting just now. He said that the China in reference to Africa, he said everyone is eating and things of that nature. And I remember Dr. Amos Wilson said very clearly in a lecture before, he said, if we think that the Chinese man, if he replaces the white man, everything is going to be all good, we have another thing coming. I don't believe if China
I I
was to
I
replace.
was not talking about the replacement of the white man. I was just talking about logistics. There are
Yeah, we talking
roads.
economies. We talking economies, right?
Logistics. There are roads
Okay,
in African countries, and
okay,
now the African economy is starting up. It's starting to roll.
okay. So
That's the
so
only thing
my
that it meant. That's the only
okay,
thing that
no
it
no
meant. Sorry.
no sweat, no sweat. So another thing you said is that, okay, if you say the world was off of the gold standard before Nixon took it off, that's true. That's true. So to go back to it, there are two people who's trying. I think that Gaddafi tried to do it, and I think that Traore is currently trying to do it, and Zimbabwe is trying to do it right now. But they have enough goal. They have enough goal to use to use that method in terms of representing their money in the world and having it being backed by gold. But what of the countries that doesn't have that natural resource or other resources? Like my country right now, we have very limited resources. So if we go if we used to go on the gold standard or use just your idea and using the resources of the country, then we shit out of luck. I mean, we shit out of luck. So it's like I am, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I am kind of looking at this maybe in a different way. Maybe I'm looking at it different, but I think that I don't know. I'll leave it for now, man. I'll leave it. Go ahead, Black Steel. Go ahead.
all
Go
right.
ahead,
I
Black
got
Steel.
one. So one thing, asked what would Garvey do, and I had to pull his book off the shelf. He says, if the Negro is not careful, he will drink all of the poison of modern civilization and die from the effects of it. That's from his. That's from the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, right? And I think that's a very, very poignant statement he made in that. And to Jose's point, me being raised in the church or whatnot, I remember there is a Bible verse in the Book of Revelation. It talks about when Satan gets cast down from heaven. It says, "Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down among you, having great wrath, for he knows he has but a short time. I think that America knows that its time is short. And as many of the Muslim people call America the great Satan, which is Satan is just the adversary, But the wrath of the Satan and the wrath of this empire, when it cannot maintain control of the world, because the idea that you can maintain control of the planet is a ridiculous idea. There's the idea of full spectrum dominance, earth, sea, space, air, everything. The very idea of that is a ridiculous idea. And all empires fall. Every empire has a lifespan, right? Sometimes it's a long time, it can be a short time, but every empire rises and falls. That's history. The Romans had their time, the people of Kemet, the Persians, the Greeks, everybody has their time to live and die, right? America trying to prolong its lifespan. I think it was Franz Fanon who said that the old world is dying and the new world is struggling to be born. Now is the time of monsters. And that's kind of what we're seeing. I'll leave it there.
I appreciate that.
My biggest concern. Sorry, I'm gonna be brief, Koku. My biggest concern to Black Steel and to Jose is what will replace it. That's my biggest concern.
I think a multipolar world is overall a good thing. I think multipolarity is a good thing overall. I think that instead of having just one global superpower, you have differing, superpowers in the world. You have United Africa, you got China, you got Russia, you got, if they're in Brazil, in Latin America. I think that's overall a good thing. I think that a multipolar world is better than a unipolar world, because a unipolar world has been a clusterfuck. We got to get rid of it.
Yes, and multipolar. Yeah, what will replace it? Us, at least in our nations, us, and then we will be one of the poles of a multipolar world if it's not us leading us as the parents. But yeah. What else? Who else will
We can't be afraid of the future. I think the thing that our enslavement and our colonization took from us, the worst thing they took from us was our imagination and the ability to imagine and conceptualize a world without these fucking crackers.
I got a cute wordplay on that. Image in nation, imagination. We're missing an image in our nation. What if you can imagine it, you can manifest it, but there's no imagination, so our nation is not manifesting. No image in nation. But anyway,
yeah, Black Seal took that from me. I heard a lot of fear of in fact, if you think about it, it's fear of success too. We can't be afraid. I think that's what caused colonialism to be extended even when Black countries got independent. I think Black folks in Chad said, well, let's just continue what was going on as opposed to continue it as a transition to what we decide we want for ourselves. We got to be very mindful of those who still have that scared mindset. We can't be scared about.
But Koku, you are from the Bahamas, bro. You are from the Bahamas. I am from the Bahamas. After this place claimed its independence and the Negroes take over, you understand the level of dysfunction that occurred still to this day, bro. The other night, I mean, I had my current on for 5 hours and shit like this is, and I shouldn't say that's just gonna happen to every Black nation. But I'm saying that there is a level of dysfunction that I actually live, and these people who claim, oh, we are independent. What these niggers have done for more than 51 years is left much to be desired, because they replaced the other guys who's here. They replaced them. And I'm saying, and you from here, you know the shortfalls that exist in these nations. Now I understand I have the responsibility to make the society much better, me and people coming after me. But I'm saying that I see the effects of when you say bye, see you all later, and who was replaced with, and the people in the nation clamor for these same clowns that you see every political electoral year, year after year after year after year. The same problems existed since the 80s for me. And I'm saying that nothing is changing. So I just, this is, you say I'm talking fair. I am talking the experience of saying bye to one group of people. And when the Negroes come, they not only act like the people who was in power before them, they act worse. You know what I mean? It gets worse. So this is my trepidation when I talking on a level of experience. I live in it. I'm living it. I ain't just talking, I'm living it. But this is to say, like I say, maybe it's trepidation, maybe it's fear, but this is my concern, the practical realities of the situation. That's where I am in my head. But I'll leave it.
Yeah. I'll before I go to the next panelist, I'll just quickly say that, you know, fear is not a bad thing. There's people who go around talking about fear is a bad thing. No, fear is not a bad thing. It's about what kind of fear that you have. If you have a fear that the same malarkey will happen, then that just means that we have to do more work now to get people on the right mindset. What really happened in the past, and this is not the time to talk about it now, but what happened in the past was a lot of our folks who took over power when those black nations started to gain independence, these guys were immersed in the whole British experience. These guys were subjects of the UK. These guys were colonized too. And so they just went with the easy thing of just trying to continue what was happening. And of course, if you don't understand how something was happening, you're going to fail at it. And more powerful is if you don't implement things in the way that you understand things, right? It's going to fail. And that's the problem that we see in the Caribbean. A lot of those guys came up as British subjects. I mean, literal British subjects. They were colonized people, you know. With all that said, he's been waiting a long time. Let's get to Anthony next. Anthony, what say you?
Yeah, that kind of, I mean, I was just the part that you was just saying, Cuckoo, about the fear part. Okay, I address that first. Okay, you know, first of all, that sister, I know her, Anya Sunwoo. I know she's a part of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I think they are based out of Arizona somewhere. But I know I was on a podcast with a couple other people and with her one time. Yeah, real sharp sister, man. But okay, we was just talking about the fear part where you and Buana was discussing. It made me think about what Malcolm X said. You know what Malcolm was talking about, the house Negro and the field Negro? You remember that lecture, Coco? Hello? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking. I think, yeah. Okay, but anyway, yeah, the lecture, the house Negro and the field Negro. Remember, okay, the field Negro and the house Negro were having a conversation. The house Negro saying, well, we found a better house than this. You know what I'm saying? The food and clothes and all of this stuff. And the field Negro, you know, who his experience wasn't the same as the house Negro. What he said, anywhere is better than this. You know what I'm saying? What he said, when a fire caught, he prayed for a wind that it burnt the whole goddamn thing down. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I put this with I equate this with the house nigga, the field Negro thing. You talk about the fear part. Okay, America falling. Man, I mean, I think it'd be one of the most beautiful things that ever happened. You know what I'm saying? I honestly, I think it'd be great. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, what Bonner was saying, well, what's gonna replace it? But I mean, we got to think like the field Negro. You know, anything is better than here, and the anything is what you gonna make of it. You know what I'm saying? Was I mean, we had to realize, okay, like you was just saying that, okay, and something when something happened, like when colonialism is over with, and you get these Negroes these Negroes in office, you had these Negroes who were educated in that system. You okay? After a couple of years of them fucking up, the people need to do what? Need to run their ass up out of there. And I think too many times, whether it's in the Caribbean, whether it's in on the continent in Africa, or even right here in America, among us, the Congressional Black Caucus, we let these same old Negroes who won't never do a goddamn thing go represent us all the time. You know what I'm saying? They lay there and say this or that, and and get and talk about what Trump gonna do and whatever this other white nationalist gonna do, and and scare you with those kind of politics, and they end up not doing. They end up doing the same thing that they do over and over again. No, just so you can keep them elected, keep them in power, so they can keep on doing the same old damn thing and keep the system going along. You know, you gotta, you gotta fight a war to the end. And fighting a war to the end means you got to also overthrow them house Negroes. You know what I'm saying? You got to get them out the way. Because the house Negroes gonna stand in the way of progress. Okay, that's that part right there. Okay, back to the like the prompt you was talking about, the African identity. The African identity. Okay. I remember
Well, it's about rejecting the American identity.
Okay, I mean, okay, rejecting. Okay, okay, that's the same thing. Okay, rejecting the American identity. Okay, it was a brother that was from right here, born and raised here in Shreveport, Louisiana. He was he's known as Owusu Sadoki. I don't know if Carl probably heard of him, but he was associated with with brother Kwame Ture. He was the co-founder of Malcolm X Liberation University in the late '60s in North Carolina. And he was like one of the leading Pan African voices in America back in the late '60s, early '70s. Okay, they did an African Liberation Day in Washington D.C. in 1972. The main slogan was "We are an African people." You know what I'm saying? And they was and that's what they was talking about, rejecting the American identity and American policies and everything. Matter of fact, they was like protesting. They was at the embassy of the United States in South Africa and Zimbabwe. You know what I'm saying? And other places where America was supporting these colonial regimes, these European colonial settler regimes. And he had said that he met with Amilcar Cabral of the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau. And he was saying, well, what can we do as African people here? And he was saying one thing, Cabral was saying one thing is, I'm glad that you accepting your African identity as African people. He was telling them the things that they could do, like, keep the heat on the American government and everything. And basically, just keep the heat up, keep the issues in front of us. Okay. This ain't new. If you go back to the 19th century, it was the same argument of the African versus American identity. You had Martin Robeson Delaney, Dr. Martin Robeson Delaney, who was a man who was a proud black man, and a man proud of his African heritage, even went to Africa. And then you had Frederick Douglass, who was like, no, man, we got to forget that, all that old stuff there. That was our great grandparents and all that. And we got to buy into this American identity. You know what I'm saying? We got to embrace this. We Americans now. We got to forget all that. We Americans, and we need to fight. This is what we need to fight for. So I mean, that whole thing. I mean, it's not something that just happened now. It's something that's been around since African people been in this country. The idea of the African identity or the American identity, and the rejection of either one of them. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'd leave it right there, man. I don't want to go on too long.
That's good stuff. Thank you for that, Anthony. I know you've been waiting a long time. Well, finally, we'll get to him now. Let's welcome in Real Black Gentleman this week. RBG, how are you this week?
Man, I'm straight. What's up?
Good. So you see the topic, and you
yeah.
What say you?
Well, I want to break it down a little bit, right? Because like the idea is I feel like you can't throw identity as a characteristic. It's not really, the whole identity thing. It winds up being convoluted beyond like literal, like, you know, how do I say it? Identity. It should be a localized thing in general. When we try to identify identity, I mean, I have citizenship. I have, you know what I'm saying? I have American, you know what I'm saying? So to say identity, you know what I'm saying? Let me just break it down. So when I say that, I would say it's more useful in America because, I mean, in any case, you're not going to have anything to do with, you have to recognize, if I'm in Africa, I want to recognize what is American. I want to recognize and be able to identify it, right? But it's more important here if I'm trying to reject it, because it's not about the identity. Identity, again, it's the broader sense. You know what I'm saying? We're Black people, right? That in America, it being Black shaped America. So there's the stoplights, everything Black people have literally done that you can call what it is that is integral part of the infrastructure of the bounds of the United States. You know what I'm saying? As far as like what she's saying, yeah, she makes a point about Barack in this counter revolution about trying to be more American in emphasizing those characteristics as opposed to the African ones. I mean, as long as you don't have to, how do I say it? I mean, again, Black people in this country are precarious because if anything, naturally, if we're all going to be African, then naturally the whole Africa, you know, and all of its largesse could float something over, you know, on behalf of Black people, and yet nothing that's floated over, right? So the whole Black thing, like Black people can't necessarily, you know, daftly give up America, although the America that like we would identify as going out of the world and doing all that other stuff, yeah, I reject that. I reject that because like, no, that's not my America. What is that? Those are like areas in which people perform duties and calculate shit within the bounds of that real estate. And they do that supposedly on behalf of everyone in this country, including Black people. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to sit here and say, you know what I'm saying, as Black people, you know what I'm saying? It's easy to reject America outside as African people. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, so much of it. I mean, and as far as the whole replacement that you know what I'm saying, Bawana and everyone saying that like you don't want to replace one for the other. True, like we do have to have a sense of like who we are, but we need to understand there's going to be like steps in between there. You're not going to get there from here. Real politics tells you you're not going to get there from here. So you're going to have to make some decisions and kind of like theater it out in such a way that we gain leverage in the chaos. You know what I'm saying? Black, when I say we, I'm speaking as Africa, as African people, we. I hope I made that clear. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I reject all this nonsense. You know what I'm saying? All this money going over like, no, you didn't do that in my name. You know what I'm saying? None of that. When we're talking about America, as soon as it leaves the bounds on some other shit, you know what I'm saying? That I can't identify. I don't recognize that. I don't know what that is, right? Because it's not the people. It's just, you know, folks in particular real estate, you know, going over plans and plots and like moving, you know, infrastructure and equipment here, there to do, and, you know, on my behalf, supposedly. I'm going to pass the mic.
I appreciate that, RBG. Good conversation in the chat. You guys keep it going. If I can't read your comments, I'll just display them on the screen. With that said, Oni, you've heard everything everyone has had to say. You've seen the chat. What say you to all of it?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with everybody on some points and disagree with everybody on some points. You know, this is the real problem. Well, no, let's actually backtrack. America is gonna fall. Let's say that, right? Malcolm X told us the same damn thing. He said, America don't got too many years left. It's about to fall, and blah blah blah. He said this in the '60s, which is look at the look at the time, look at the year it is, right? That's 60 years ago. We've been talking about America falling for 60 damn years, right? Now I'm not saying it's not going to fall, but here's the second point to this, right? And that is, if it were to fall, you're in no position for that collapse. Like if America were to fall, you should not be in America when it happens. And I'm going to defer to, before we go to Garvey, I'm going to defer to the wisdom of my brother from another mother, Carter G. Woodson, who says, history shows that it does not matter who is in power, what revolutionary forces take over the government. Those who have not learned to do for themselves and have to depend solely on others never obtain any more rights or privileges in the end than they had in the beginning, right? And what he's saying is, if whoever replaces the U.S. government, it's probably going to be these white boys, small little white states. He's probably going to be the states and the cities, but especially depending on where you are, it might be some white, quote unquote white supremacy. And look, nothing is guaranteed in the future. However, you got to ask yourself, who's organizing for independence and who is dependent? All this election fervor is dependence. Oh, Kamala's going to fix my shit. Oh, Trump is going to fix my shit. All of that is dependence. And if you are dependent on the U.S. government, right, you are very, very screwed when the U.S. government walks away. Okay? Now, that's not to say that the U.S. government collapsing is not a net positive around the world, because it absolutely is. But another thing we have to recognize and come to terms with is that most Black Americans are not going to want the U.S. government to collapse. Most Black Americans are going to want the U.S. government to persist. I don't even, and as far as the quote earlier that Amos Wilson on the Chinese government, look, I'm not a fan of, I'm not saying the Chinese are good or bad or whatever, right? But what I'm going to tell you is the fear mongering from Black Americans about other countries just serves the American government. Okay? It just serves the American government because the American government wants you to be dependent on them. It wants you to tell them to continue to keep going, keep doing, keep at it. It wants to tell you that that so on and so forth. And I'm telling you, we are. It's like sometimes you can get embarrassed. Just engage with our people because we are so like. How I put it? I'll put it this way. Slavery happened. Slavery happened to Black folk in America. Slavery happened because we are so damn bought. Like we are bought. We are selling out as a people. So I mean, I want us to. And the thing is this, I think that we have to come to terms with that because it's like, look, again, I have nothing against, I'm not saying that I like China. I'm not saying I dislike China. What I'm saying is this, the United States is the global exporter of terrorism. And I tell you, I almost feel bad today. Today, I actually, I'm not an emotional guy, okay? I'm not an emotional guy, but I heard this video, somebody put up a video and they said this thing hits different 20 years later. And so you click on it, and it's Saddam Hussein, right? Now, 20 years ago, I didn't really, young buck, stupid fuck, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know what was going on, right? Matter of fact, I was a teenager or some shit, right? So, I was just told, like Black Steel said, we all heavily propaganda. It's a bad dude, right? You hear this guy's last speech, and you look at it in the context of what if these people were African? And you say to yourself, damn. You say to yourself, damn. He's like, look, y'all are just collaborating with the invader, with the imperialists. You're collaborating with the imperialist order, and the judge there is sentencing this man to death. And of course, you say to yourself, allegedly, if I remember correctly, this is the one that they said had weapons of mass destruction when he did it. So his own people are sentencing this man to death at the behest of the U.S. government and its allies, right? And they're going along with it, and he has to die. And he's telling them, look, pay attention. This is just imperialist bullshit. And I'm telling you, it keeps going on. I saw a video earlier today of what's going on in Ukraine. If you guys don't know, what's going on in Russia, matter of fact. If you guys don't know, Ukraine recently pushed into the borders of Russia. And what they're doing now is they're kidnapping people. And like I said, again, it's Russian people. So, you could say, I don't care. But sometimes you got to look at it like, what if these were Africans? And you have some people pushing into invading the country and kidnapping people. And you say to yourself, that's how easy it is. That's how easy it is. Because what NATO gave to what NATO gave to Ukraine, NATO has. And you're in NATO. You're in a NATO country. So whatever they could do abroad, they could do at home. Worse. And you there waving a damn flag. Okay? And I'm telling you, if the U.S. government sets away, because I'll tell you this, you know who's between you and that quote unquote white supremacist? The police that you allegedly don't like. Because you're not between them. You either have to get out or get suited and booted. But because you're not getting suited and booted, or because your neighbor's not getting suited and booted, get the fuck out. And I'm gonna address the big elephant in the room. The reality is this: even if you said to yourself, well, won't Pan-Africanism save us? Probably not in your lifetime. Okay? Probably not in your lifetime. What will save you in your lifetime is getting out. Okay? That's what will save you in your lifetime. Don't buy the bullshit. And I'm telling you, America, whether America falls or continues, whatever, it is whatever, like if it continues, it's gonna do the freaking terrorism against you. It's going to propagandize you. It's going to mess with your freaking head. It's going to screw you over. If you guys see what's going on right now, I think I'll say it's in the women's circles, honestly. But what's going on right now is that all of a sudden, because Kamala's running, black folk, black people are now like there's a big push for black people to be anti-Palestine all of a sudden. Okay, and it's that quick. It's that easy. They can manipulate you. It's that easy. It doesn't take any work, and that should scare you. That should scare you. I'm not saying that because I support one way or the other. What I'm saying is that the fact that they can manipulate you so damn quickly, so damn easily, you should be saying to yourself, okay, this is not a safe space, because if they could manipulate you, they can manipulate their own people too, and they can manipulate your people against you. And they have, and they'll continue to. Right? So I don't remember all the things I wanted to say because whatever. But I think I'll finish with this quote, because the question is, what will Marcus Garvey say? And so I said to myself, why would I even answer for myself? Let Marcus Garvey say it. So Marcus Garvey says, "It is unfortunate that we should find ourselves at this time the only disorganized group Others have had the advantage. I should read it like him, right? Others have had the advantage of organization for centuries. Nah, lose that. But so what seems to them unnecessary from a racial point of view becomes necessary to us, who have had to labor all along under the disadvantages of being scattered without a racial aim or purpose. No race or people can well survive without an aim or purpose. Do we have an aim? Do we have a purpose? Right? Are we trying to organize as a people? And oh, sorry, I forgot. That's one thing I wanted to say. And so to Barnes' point about, hey, the governments fall apart, after the white man leaves. Yeah. You know why? Because the white man was sustained on the back of your enslavement. And if you're not getting the resources from enslaving your own people, you're not going to have as much resources before compared to after. But you have to make do. And you got to remember that when people come out of slavery, people come out of a highly abusive system, a highly dehumanized and abusive system, they might not necessarily be, MIT graduates. So they're not going to be able to manage nations on the same level if they have less resources, if the world economy is turned away from them, if all their older economic models or all their economic plans are put to waste when the countries, when the other countries that they used to trade with or engage with are not accepting the same things that they produce, or are not recognizing them as states or trading partners, right? A lot is going to happen if you take that revolutionary step. But the thing is that you must take that revolutionary step because these other people are dehumanizing you and abusing you, and they really brought you there to enslave you. And just to finish with this, my ancestors, I guess, in Jamaica, here's the thing about what happened in Jamaica, right? The average lifespan of an enslaved African in Jamaica was 2 years. A lot of the Africans who came to Jamaica had no descendants. They were dead. And that's the kind of management system that gave Jamaica a whole bunch of wealth. Absolutely. But for us as Black people to sit down and say, the country used to run better when people were dying in 2 years, when the mortality rate was 2 years, absolutely not. It was okay for white folk, but we're not white. And sometimes we have to look through, and so yes, if a Black person takes over that sort of an economy and they're not enslaving their people to have a mortality rate of 2 years, it's going to be radically different. But guess what? It's also going to be radically better. And that's what I'm gonna say with that.
I gotta add the clap soundbite, but well said, my boy. Well said there. You guys heard what Oni had to say. So, does anyone have any last comments they want to make on this topic?
The only thing I would say to that, because I hate to have to say Oni is right. Lord knows I do. But when he's right, he's right, So give him his props to that. The only thing I would just say is that the framing of that, it's a choice, right? It took over 400 years for most Black people, not just in America, but across the diaspora. If all 40 million Black people in this country, let's call it 45 million, round up to the nearest whole number, right? Decided they wanted to say, fuck this shit, we out of here. Logistically speaking, that would take hundreds of years to happen, especially when you have Black children being born every day. Like there was, I believe it was, after the end of the Civil War, the idea was that they were going to take all the former slaves and take them to Haiti or, Central America. The idea was to get Black people out of this country. And they said there's the way that there's so many Black children being born, we couldn't get them out fast enough. So I think that when you kind of say this, and I'm all for expatriation, but I don't think that logistically, financially, you could get all 45 million Black people out of the United States into which African country? I don't know. And truth be told, to your point, it would be a decrease in the standard of living for a lot of African Americans. And sadly enough, they probably wouldn't want it. What you mean, don't have Wi-Fi? You mean the healthcare is shit? I can't get my Social Security, which I know you're dealing with a lot of elderly people. They probably wouldn't even want to go. Me personally, when shit hits the fan, Buana's not that far from me. So Buana, make some room on your couch. Me and my son coming. And my mom. So yeah. But anyways, when that happens, I think I just think the framing of, oh, you guys are choosing not to leave. I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's most people consider it as an option because the cost, where would we go, speaking the language, leaving your home, the country you were born in, even though it sucks, it's a hard choice because you're leaving your friends, you're leaving your family, you're leaving everything you've ever known. So I think that it will, if it comes to it, I think that they will do it. But I don't think that to say that, oh, you're choosing not to leave, or I don't think that's the case at all. I think a lot of people just don't really logistically see that possibility. I think it would be very difficult to do.
Any other last thoughts here? Thanks for that, Black Steel.
Yeah, I'll say this.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not going to sit here and say because this land is not Africa that makes me less of an African. There are powerful African people who are less African than me. Period. I'll say that right now in America. I don't care about the geography. Right now, today, there's some really weak, wicked African people who are not as African than me. That's what I'm going to say.
I agree. I agree with Real Black Gentleman's statements. And by the way, Black Steel, I would never let you sleep on no couch. I have a room that is an exercise room. I'll convert that room, and Big Mama and your son, y'all could turn that into your own place. But I'll never ever let you sleep on no couch. But needless to say, I just think that I hear Oni's perspective. I somewhat agree with him. I somewhat understand Real Black Gentleman's position as well, because he is talking from a realistic point of view as well. And I just want to, I understand the sentiment, but for me personally, I like to focus on the reality of things and how things are going to actually play out. And everything we are doing right now, we are speculating. And you know what? I don't want to be a hypocrite because Jose said something tonight that it kind of like made me eat my words. He said that, why we can't run the world. He's like, who's going to replace us? We going to replace us. And I had the same kind of speech last week when I say that you should have confidence in your own self. So he is exactly right and exactly on point when he say that. Why wouldn't I believe that we are supposed to be at the head of this so-called global competition? So he is absolutely on point. So he made me eat my words tonight. And I just really wanted to let him know that. But I'll leave it there to be brief.
Okay, I guess no one else had anything left to say here. So we'll go on to True to Breeze topic number 3. I want to thank everyone for that spirited conversation, especially the chat. You guys in the chat doing good work tonight. Again, the link is pinned to the top of the chat. You guys can join the panel yourselves. We still got spaces up here. Black women, click the link, join the panel, and let's continue the conversation.